I'm Ethan, I love muzzleloading. Today we're headed to Friendship, Indiana to the National Muzzleloading Rifle Association Spring Championship Shoot. We have the opportunity to show you what is left of one of the original rifling machines from the Gemmer Hawken shop in St. Louis. We're going to be talking to Mark Breyer, the current owner and user of this equipment, about some of this machine's history and use in 2025.
Hi, I'm Mark Breyer. How I got into this is I was just very fortunate, I guess. I was born into it. That's the best answer I can give. My grandfather was T.K. Dawson, who was down here for many, many years. Built a wide range of rifles from Pennsylvania to Hawken to British Works. I was very fortunate that this is what I grew up with, and that's about all I've ever really known. So as far as the show here today, I still have, that was in my grandfather's possession, the original rifling bench that came out of the Gemmer shop. Best as we can figure, it went into service in the Gemmer shop around 1865, 1870. It was there until he closed in 1915. When Art Russell came along in the late 50s, early 60s and bought everything associated with the Hawken shop, somebody contacted Art, and there was also a barn outside of St. Louis that a bunch of Hawken shop related items were in there, and the rifling bench being one of them. There were several original barrel blanks in the barn. Ed White from El Dorado, Illinois, which is pretty close to St. Louis, he initially got the bench and cleaned it up, refurbished it. I believe he's probably the one that just put it on the piece of channel iron here. But the indexing head, your rack pinion, the sign bar portion of it is all the original bench. If you look here on the indexing head, this outer ring where this pin is, if you choose this, the outermost portion here cuts 7-groove rifling, and that's what we rifled the barrel at the show this weekend, was 7-groove, and we cut it in 1/56. If you chose to, you could drop down a hole, and as you go around, that position there would cut 4-groove rifling, and this down, or I'm sorry, 6. And this one down here done 4. 4-groove we think of being associated with a very early gun, but so I'm not too sure why at this point in time they still had 4-groove, but they did. We can cut any rate of twist we want on this machine by it being a sign bar. It will cut down to a very rapid pistol twist, which if you loosen the bolts here on the back side and you slide this out, increases the rate of twist. So it will go down all the way to about a 1 1/8 twist. And if it's pushed all the way in and parallel, it will do what most people today know as Forsyth rifling. It will do 1 108. So you got this huge window of what you can cut. Now, this weekend, that barrel we cut 1 1/56. So, and we're very glad that Jason Snyder of Rice Barrels, he made up the barrel blank for us and donated for the show. And that's what we rifled and gave away as first prize. I've had many people tell me I should probably stop using this because it's such an antique, but I think that's kind of a shame. That's what it was made for. And being that late in the 1800s, the east of the United States was very industrialized. And if by chance something happened to break, I mean, say I broke a tooth or something, it's very easy to fix today. So, but another neat feature about this bench is if you don't have the indexing pin in at all, which that allows you to go to each different groove when you're cutting and rifling. But if you don't have the pin in there, it just free floats. So one thing that's nice that you can do with this bench, which I've done before, and I have an example here I could show you, instead of a normal cutting head like I had on here that we've done this weekend, I'll back it out. Maybe you can see the saw in here. No, I took the saw out. As you can see, our mess, we've got metal shavings from rifling the machine, but well, this one's kind of wore out. But here's an old saw of a different barrel I had done at home in the past, and that would just fit in your cutter head right there. And as you do your passes, it stops cutting. You move to your next groove, it don't cut anymore. So when you went around all 7 grooves, and it will no longer remove any metal, on the bottom side of the mortise to hold the cutter, I've got a little bitty 1/16 inch hole drilled in there, and you can just insert this little pin to push the cutter out, and that would allow you to cut a little strip of paper that we shim the cutter up with, and we start the whole process over again. One thing with rifling that is very important to do is you never start on the same groove every time you add a shim. I always go the odd numbers and then I go the even numbers. And then the reason being that, one, the paper will compress, but it's not compressed the very first time you add a shim. And so if you continually say just started in groove number 1 every time you added a shim, in the end, that particular groove is going to be a lot deeper than all the others. So you go around with a new shim every time you start a new shim in a different groove. But back to what I was saying about the ability to free float, I freshened an original barrel before, and you see I just cast it on a rod, and I since cut the rod off. But so we just cast this slug around the original barrel that the rifling was quite wore out, and then we were able to locate where we needed to put our cutter in to freshen it. And so with this being to just freely rotate when it's not engaged in the indexing head, it will follow the rifling of the barrel that you're doing and allow you to freshen that old barrel.
Okay.
So that's another big advantage to an older machine like this versus, say, earlier in the 1800s, a wooden drum rifling bench, to where unless you make up one with a new rate of twist or something different, that's all you're ever cutting, is that one rate of twist. A lot more variation with this. And it just goes to show how also, as we grew as a country, industrialization grew and everything else, because this is really not a bench anything close like you would have seen in an 18th century gun shop. But it's a very important piece of history, I believe, and I often wish I could know how many barrels this thing's cut in its life. I was asked the other day how many I've cut on it, and my best guess was I've 15 or 16. I just haven't kept track. My grandfather unfortunately passed when I was very young, and this was a portion I just had to relearn myself. And hopefully my kids will hopefully maybe carry it on, and the thing will continue to be in use after I'm dead and gone, because ultimately that's what it was made for, and I feel that's what it should still be doing. So that's about it, unless you have any specific questions.
No, that's a great overview.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Ethan.
Okay, we're going to award the first place for the Woodfield Hawk and Shoot now. And Robert here beside me got first place. Kelsey Breyer got second place. And first place is the rice barrel. We just got a blank. And Mark rifled it yesterday. So the actual barrel was rifled from the original Gimmer rifling machine. So you've got an original, whether you like it or not.
I like it.
Okay, well this is good. This, the outside profile we did was 1.8" to 1 inch. And it's 34 inches long. So we have our winner and we have our rifler right there. And I'm just a spokesman. Okay.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming down.
I was watching all this.